Hi guys, this is Frank with RC Racing TV and polepositionrc.com to bring to you the rest of the build for the Kyosho Hummer H1 from DeAgostini Model Space. So here we are, we've got steps 15 and 16, and these are basically building the other side of the rear suspension, the right rear hub. Last time we did the left rear hub, which is this guy right here, and we're going to be building the other side and installing it in the next couple of steps. So this should all be somewhat familiar. We'll just break this open and get building. So we've got a couple of the plastic pieces that are going to hold all the gear bits together. And we've got the gears themselves and the bushings. There's the input axle. So we build about half of it in step 15, if it's anything like the previous step, and the other half in step 16. So there's our plastic pieces. Now again, we printed out the instructions, so we're just going to follow these along. And just have those there in front of us so we can easily access them. So we've got, here's the grease that we use in the previous steps. Just make sure we have a rag because we are dealing with grease and it's very greasy. Right, so got this here, and we're going to put in the bushing. Make sure it's pushed in firmly, and then we've got this piece again. And we're going to put some more grease on it. And then push it through from the outside. Give it a little spin. And then we're going to grease the inside. And then once again, we're going to look for, this is the front of the gear. You see it reflecting in the light. And there's the back with the smaller sort of flat face. The front is this piece. So we need to make sure that that is facing us as we push this on. There we are. Push it on and make sure that you can see the gap there. And then we've got the big E-clip. It's going to go on. Make sure I'm doing this in the right order. I don't want to lead anyone astray. Well, technically, that's the end of step 15. And then the instructions have a handy little info about, now I did show a little bit of this when building the shocks, the front and the back of the E-clips, or E-rings as they call them, and the washers themselves. The fronts are the more rounded sections or side. The back is the flat side. It's a bit hard to see on the video. Oops, especially if you drop the piece. Can't get too close because I'll lose focus. But there, see, reflecting the light. That's the back. You see how it's got like hard edges on the very edges of the piece. and then this is the front where it's a little bit more rounded. The edges are a bit softer. It's much easier to actually see in the picture in the instructions. So this is the back, and there's the front with those softer edges, because the way these are made is this is just a sheet of steel, spring steel probably, and there's a very hard metal die that comes down and punches from this side, from the front side, which makes these edges a bit softer than this side, which is the underside of the punched sheet steel. So hopefully that makes sense. So we're going to go straight into step 16. Quite a quick couple of steps. And they want you to remove the gear so we're removing these pieces, and we're getting, well, we need to open this piece now. I can find my scissors. And we're going to have, is it this piece? Yes. Oh, we need this bushing. And we've got another E-clip and more gears and bushings in there. Okay, so now we're going to grease up this piece, the axle. And now it says to apply a small amount of grease, place the 1480 metal bushing. Now again, remember in the last step we had a couple very similar sized bushes or bushings. Now the way, every manufacturer has their own way of sort of calling these things, these pieces. So what I've got here is got a caliper, and just going to measure. See, it's 13.9, so that's your 14. So the 1480, what that's referring to is the 14 is the outer diameter of this bushing, and the inner diameter, I believe, is going to be, well, it's 7.4. That's 4. So I'm not sure if the 8 means the inner diameter or not. 7.34 again. And, well, this will be the 16, though. We know that. Okay? So, in case you're wondering, that's what the codes mean. 14 is the outer diameter. So we're building this in a slightly different manner than we did the previous rear hub. Doesn't matter though. So we're putting this through here. And then we're getting, now this is the tricky bit that we had in the last step. There are two different sizes of pins. You can see there, one is clearly shorter than the other. So if you don't have a pair of calipers or a ruler handy, the easiest way to do this is to go, okay, well, they want us to put in the 2.5 by 12 mil pin. And this step comes with a 12 mil pin and a 14 mil pin. So obviously, the shorter one is the 12 mil. So we're going to put the pin in, and then this gear with the gaps that you can see, because those are going to fit over that pin to lock the gear in place on this shaft. Go. Sometimes the metal pieces just need a bit of encouragement. Okay, and now we're going to use the large pin, or the large E-ring. Make sure, remember, don't use the small one because you'll just bend it. It's not going to fit over this big axle. So now we're going to use our needle nose pliers. Again, we're going to hold this in place so it doesn't fly anywhere. It spreads out and then clips down once it's past the center point of the axle. So now that is in place and all fine. And now we reinsert that one. And then we again put this on in the correct facing. If it doesn't go, just need to turn the gears just so that they mesh properly. And then we use the smaller, well, the remaining E-ring. There we go. And now just make sure that they spin okay. And then we're just going to goop a bunch of grease onto the gears so that as they spin, they're nicely lubricated. Generally, you only really need to do one, because that will make sure that they'll get everywhere then. You can see how that grease is getting all over the place. Okay. And now we're going to put the other bushing over this, and then make sure, obviously, well, you can only get that in there one way. We need to get oh no, had that wrong. That was wrong. I remembered it's this bearing bushing goes on that. I'm actually going to add a bit of grease onto that bit there. Right, so I'm using a RC specific tool again, these hex wrenches, to put the bolts and screws in. The L wrenches are fine if you want to use them, or if that's all you have, but it's just a bit quicker to use these particular tools. So again, I'm doing the star pattern. I started here, and then went down to this one, and then this one, and then came back to the side, and now I'm doing the last two corners. And again, make sure not to make it too tight. You'll be able to tell if on these corner pieces, if you've made it too tight by if the screws actually come out of the opposite side of the plastic, and I'll show you what I mean. They should be absolutely flush. So you can see there maybe, and there. That one's just right. This one's just a little bit too tight, so I'll just back it off a half a turn, and there we go. That just helps prevent any stresses, especially with these bearings and stuff like that. So last thing we'll do is, not last thing we do, but next step, get some grease on the output shaft, and this next final bushing goes in. You can see how everything's nice and smooth. Okay, and then we're going to put this metal piece, making sure that this rounded bit here faces inward. See, there's no rounded here. You see that? So this piece faces that way, fits right over the shaft, and you'll have a hole. You can see there. And now that 14 mil pin goes through that hole. Oh, there we go. And then the plastic sort of shroud or cover goes over that. And then just temporarily we're putting the this nut, the wheel nut, over that just to hold everything in place. Okay, and then the next thing is we get our rear suspension pieces, and we're going to line it up. See if I can get it to show on the camera. You see this hole here. You want it to be nice and straight, and then we're going to get our screw hinge pin, and that's going to go through that hole. Just make sure you push it down so it's basically gone through and it's into this part of the arm. And now we get a crosshead or Phillips wrench screwdriver. See if I can find mine. So here we are, got that again. And we just tighten that down. You can see just a bit of about maybe 1.5 millimeters or so sticks out from the other side, just like it does on this side. So there we go. See, now we've got most of the suspension in place. And the final steps is that we get our dog bone or drive shaft, and we just put that in place. And then if you remember, got all the parts from the previous steps, and we're just trying to get this lined up here. There we are. So we have a nice, easy to find hole there for the screw that we're going to find in our parts box, which is here. So somewhere in here, I think I see it already. There's our upper screw fastener for the camber link. You might have to move it around just a little bit. There we go. And there we are. So there is the rear suspension completed. Look at that. Now again, I actually did look up what this is called. I can't remember what it is now, but it's there's a lot of Mercedes military vehicles and even Volvo vehicles that have this extended, see where the drivetrain comes through here, down a set of gears and out here. And obviously the gearing here also affects the drive. So you see how that is going to work, where the drive shaft comes in through here, through all the gears and differentials, and through all the reducing gears. So that should be pretty good. So there we are. That's steps 15 and 16. We hope you've enjoyed that, and you'll catch us on the next video where we not sure what the next steps are. Steps 17 and 18 though, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. This has been Frank with RC Racing TV and Pole Position RC, building the DeAgostini Model Space Kyosho Hummer H1.